Okay, I thought I'd capture some of this part of the process. I've achieved not complete symmetry, but as much symmetry as I think I'm going to reach for until I get things cleaned up. I might then go back and work on some of that. But I'm cleaning up the features of the face here, smoothing things out with the sponge and the water. So that I can actually see all the decisions in a very clear manner. And so I'll share how that gets done. We're going to lower this a little bit. I clearly need a cameraman. All right. I think that'll give us an insight as to how to see this. And basically, I am going over all the work that's been done with the sponge, a damp sponge, to pull all the tool marks out and take all the uneven areas done. This will often smooth out some of the lines as well, which I will most likely, if they get too subtle, wind up going back and sculpting them out a little bit, redefining them so we can see them more if they do disappear a little bit more than I want them to. But initially, this is process, and I do actually take a little bit of time to do a little extra sculpting with the sponge in the water. The clay that I'm using is it's a white clay. It is typically used, it's water-based clay used in ceramics. The reason why they call it white clay is because when you fire it, it turns white. I don't ever fire anything. I only use it to sculpt with. I like it. It's got a nice viscosity, a nice elasticity to it. Its density is great for my purposes. I mean, I like the softness of it. It's not super hard, so it's easy to push around and manipulate. And it's pretty simple to get detail out of. Easy to shift and change. And although I reuse my clays a lot on various projects, the clay being used in this sculpture is fresh out of the bag it was purchased in. Sometimes it's just better to use new clay for new types of projects because I can then, I'm not manipulating clay that has, you know, different weight to it, different densities because of how it's dried, how it's not as hydrated as it could be, not as soft and so forth. But in the end, there'll be about 15 pounds of clay in our sculpture. And then, of course, you know, we'll go through the mold making process. The sculpture that you see will actually get destroyed in that process as we make the negative. I'm going to leave that for a second because I need different tools for it in order to get the detail sculpted out. It's very small and tiny, and my sponges are not, so I'll grab a different tool from the other thing here in a second. But once this is done here, then I'll go ahead and sculpt out the hair. That's a very long, it's a time-consuming process because it's an incredible amount of detail. And it'll take a little while to accomplish, but it isn't as complicated as the rest of the form. It's just a lot of repetitive work that creates some musicality at the top of the mask, and obviously the way the hair will be sculpted will reflect the decisions made down here underneath it. And every now and again, in order to keep the clay up here wet, that I'm just letting it sit there throughout the sculpting. I give it a spritz of water, keeps it moist. Try not to get too much moisture on the mask, otherwise it just turns into a bunch of mud. Or it just gets super wet. And that makes it difficult to get any detail out of. So this is the process of cleaning. And I have some smaller pieces of sponge that I've cut up that I'll probably reach for later when I go to do underneath the nose. Tomorrow, I'll probably try and finish this up as much as possible, at least our initial proposal, because I just got offered a huge creative project for a Broadway tour of Beetlejuice, and I have to confirm some things with them before I say yes. But I want to make sure we can get this project along the way as quickly as possible. Otherwise, it will take a back seat again, and I don't want to leave the sculpture. Keeping the sculptures wet is not necessarily a problem, but as time goes by, it's just better to okay. So I don't know if I can adjust my little tripod there. To get us an image of what's happening here as I clean this up. So we'll give it a try. Have to get a tool for it though. Lots of little dental tools I purchased many years ago at an army surplus store. Saw a whole box of them and just bought the whole thing, thinking those looked useful, and as a matter of fact, they have become a pretty big staple. Am I blocking that with my head? Probably. Okay. All these little techniques invented over time to make sure that I can get the type of detail that I want. I don't know anybody else, any of my other colleagues and peers who really work the way that I do, although they might, but based on things I see, I don't know anybody else is as bonkers as I am when it comes to trying to achieve this level of detail in water-based clay before casting. I know some wood carvers that achieve this kind of detail on a pretty regular basis, if not always. But they're carving wood, which is a rigid material, a skill I do not have, by the way. This kind of detail is also, I think, sometimes maybe easier to achieve with the plasticine, the really hard plasticines, which are the oil-based clays. But you can't use plasticine if you're making neoprene masks because it's the oil seals the plaster, and then you can't use the neoprene because the plaster won't wick the moisture out of the neoprene, leaving a film behind in the mold, which is ultimately what the mask is. A little undercut, little back cut there. There's one on the other side. And I thought I'd sculpted one over here, but I clearly filled it in when I was doing something else, so I'll put it back. I don't know about these nostrils up on the sides like that. We'll talk about that. It's really about our quality of arrogance in terms of that diagonal line up, and also this sort of expressive quality that arrives with arrogance. Now, I might have to clean up some of these lines to get them back in the form after I get the hair sculpted, but let's see where we're at with this. I wish I could turn this around after I'm just going to turn it off and show the mask so I can see what I'm filming for you.